Okay.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to our presentation of our product Gasa y Comida. So before we talk about the product itself, we want to quickly introduce the team itself. So my name is Amay Patel and I'm the product owner.
My name is Saurabh Anand. I'm the Scrum Master.
My name is Rohan Chander, and I'm a development team member.
My name is Alejandro Santana, and I'm also a development team member. Okay, so the social problem that we decided to tackle was the problem of homelessness. And according to a study by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs in Gainesville, there are approximately 67 unsheltered homeless people and 147 homeless in general. And those numbers were recorded in 2019. And as of today, those numbers have jumped up to over 400 people. And with many of these homeless people do not have access to basic necessities such as shelters, food banks, libraries, or if these homeless people have children, they also do not have access to daycares. So the solution we came up with for our web application is a free full stack web app that pulls data to display nearby resources on a map for the disadvantaged people, which are the homeless people, and to help them find directions, operating hours, availability, and other basic information. Unlike other apps such as Shelter App or Our Calling, our product provides necessary info such as the amount of resources available in each shelter and food bank, along with directions to these locations. So our application will be using the microservices architecture, since we'll be gathering data from multiple databases. So here we have our system context model, and for our backend web development tools, we decided to use MERNstack. So for MongoDB will be the database where we store and delete user account data, and this data includes login information and user preferences for like nutritional preferences. And then from that database, users can access account data on the website. We will also be using express.js to handle user requests, and Node.js will execute JS code to produce the web application, and so that the web server could host the website. And for our user interface, we will be using React.js, in which users can access different pages, such as the login page, setting pages, and home page, and enter data into those pages to review relevant information. We will be using the Google API to provide locations for the food banks, jobs, and daycares. And the food bank, each of the relevant information can be found on the 3 databases that we will be pulling information from.
So more about like the languages and tools we'll be using inside of the project. So the actual web app will be designed using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and the product will utilize like a variety of libraries and frameworks such as React.js and Express.js. So React.js will be used to design like the user interface components of each page within the web application to ensure like a smooth user experience for the client. Express.js will be used to simplify the process of creating like a REST API. Controllers and routes inside of Express can easily handle the logic behind the requests from the users. Our REST API will go something like this. The client will send a request to the server. The server will authenticate the client. Then the server will receive the request and process it. And then the server will return back a response to the client, whether it is successful or not, and then give the information based off of that. Additionally, for the database management, we'll be using MongoDB, a NoSQL database system, which will be able to store user information such as like login information, food preferences, and like user preferences. The runtime environment will be done by Node.js. And then our code management will be done through GitHub, through a collaborative environment. And the product management will be used through a Jira software provided by Atlassian, where we'll be using agile, like strict agile development processes.
So our first user story is, as a person with dietary restrictions, I want to be able to store my food preferences on the website through a login method so that I can find nearby food banks that fit my needs. So the way we have it organized is we have the task on top and then the subtasks and then the components of each subtask underneath that. So our task here is finding nearby food. And then our first subtask is creating an account, which can be done by just creating a username and password. Our next subtask is logging into the website, which is just entering your username and password and clicking login. Then we have enter your dietary restrictions, which can be done by checking off all the checkboxes next to the restrictions that you have and then clicking apply. So then the application then returns a list of all nearby food banks that follow your specific dietary restrictions sorted by distance. And then the food restrictions that you picked are also saved to your account. Then you can look in the list of options that is returned just by scrolling through the list and finding one to go to. And finally, you go and get your food by clicking on the food bank you want to go to and following the given restrictions, directions to get there. So our next user story is, as a person looking for work, I want to be able to find nearby jobs that are looking for help so that I can locate opportunities more easily. So the task here is finding nearby jobs, and the first subtask is creating an account, which is again just making username and password. Logging in is the same as before as well, just making entering username and password and then clicking login. Next, we got entering your qualifications, which is thinking about any degrees or things you were good at in school, and then clicking the according checkboxes and clicking apply. And then after that, the application then returns a list of all nearby jobs that pertain to your set of skills and your qualifications sorted by distance, and your skills and qualifications are also saved to your account here. Next, you apply for your job by clicking on the link next to the job listing and then filling out any personal info necessary. After that, you just click, you keep track of your job listings through the Save Jobs feature. So whenever you apply for a job, you can click Applied, which will be next to that, and it'll save to the Save Jobs thing. Then you check your applied jobs once in a while to see any updates. And if you were not accepted, you click Rejected, and the job will be removed from your saved jobs. Finally, going to the location is as simple as following given directions to the job location. So our last user story is, as a disadvantaged parent, I want to be able to find resources that can help support my children so that they have somewhere to go while I'm working. So the task here is finding daycares for kids. The first subtask is looking through the list, which is done by clicking on each location to get more information on each place. And then the end of it is just going to the location by clicking on that specific location and following the given directions to get there.
All right, so our product backlog includes main tasks that are listed in bold, and then the subtasks that fall under that main task listed in normal text. So the first main task that we have is the UX design, which will take an approximate 11 hours of effort, which consists of designing the wireframes, designing the login/signup page, homepage, and settings page. The next main task is database selection, which will take approximately 18 hours, which includes setting up MongoDB and connecting with MongoDB Atlas for hosting in cloud. Then we need to find the databases that contain all the information that we need for our app. And then next is the login screen, which will take an approximate 11 hours, which one of the tasks consists of storing the user accounts in MongoDB. The next main task is the preference system, where users can store their preferences. And then we also need to include a settings page to change the username or the password. And then the rest of the backlog is on this slide, where the next main task is to implement the map, where we connect the app to Google Maps API. Then we need to utilize the Google Maps API and the custom markers they provide. Then we need to create the markers at the locations of the daycares, food banks, and employment opportunities. And the markers need to consist of information. And then we need to find directions to the users, to the locations for the users to find their way to the nearest food bank or etc. And then the next main task, the login screen, continued from the previous slide, has tasks of the forgot username or password option, and then finally the user authentication with username and password using Node.js and MongoDB.
All right, so here's our risk management plan. So as a team, we've discussed about various scenarios that could potentially occur in the development of the project. And so we've labeled the probability of these scenarios actually occurring and the kind of effect they would have on the development of the actual project. So by far the most concerning scenario we came across was the inability to find databases for resources, location, and availability for food banks, shelters, etc. This would require like a massive restructure of the actual web application, and we would have to like shift over our goals. Some other potential scenarios that could provide like some serious effects to the development of the project would be the software tools not being able to be integrated into the project, as we would have to find alternatives to that, or the storage of the user base presenting security issues, which means that we don't want to compromise like the user's sensitive information.
So our next steps in order to start the project would be, it would consist of the design wireframes task, designing the login sign up page, setting up MongoDB, storing the user accounts in MongoDB, creating the system to store their user preferences, creating the settings page to change the username or passwords or adjust preferences, and then finding the databases that consist of all the information. So as you can see here, the screenshot we took was actually of Jira, which we mentioned earlier was being used as our project management tool. So here Jira is able to show us the amount of estimated hours that we plan to spend on each task, as well as later on we can add people to each task. That way, each person can see what they have assigned to them and what they have left to do and what they've done already. So the main tasks are called epics, listed on purple next to each name, and the subtasks are called tasks, with the blue check marks next to the left of them. So here's our sprint 1 backlog in the screenshot. And then after the sprint 1 is done, we'll move on to sprint 2. This way, Jira can help our team organize and manage our activities so that each person has a steady way of knowing which tasks they need to work on and which tasks are complete. And here are some additional resources you can check out for more information regarding our problem. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, that looks good for your presentation. Just some minor